In this video, you'll learn about starting the Visual Basic Editor, using the Project Explorer and Properties windows, and naming a module. Home OT is a company that sends occupational therapists to work with patients in their homes. Each therapist uses a copy of the Home OT Mileage Log workbook to keep track of their mileage. The company then reimburses the therapists for the mileage. This workbook contains a macro that displays the mileage summary worksheet, which lists the monthly mileage totals and the current total for the year. Eventually, this macro will be attached to each summary button on the monthly worksheets so that anyone who wants to see a mileage summary can click the button to display the mileage summary worksheet. To customize the macro and the buttons so they work as designed, you need to use the Visual Basic Editor, an application that works with Excel and all of the Office programs to view, debug, edit, and manage Visual Basic for Applications, or VBA code. To start the Visual Basic Editor and examine the code for a macro, you click the Macros button in the Code group on the Developer tab to open the Macro dialog box. With the macro name selected in the macro name list, click the Edit button to open the Visual Basic Editor. The Visual Basic Editor usually displays 3 windows, though only one, the Project Explorer window, is open now. You use the Project Explorer window to manage your projects. A project is a collection of macros, worksheets, data entry forms, and other items that make up a customized application. This Project Explorer window displays 2 projects, one for Solver, an Excel add-in, and one for the current workbook. This window is dockable, which means you can drag it to the edge of the Visual Basic Editor window. When you do, the Project Explorer window stays on top of other windows open in the Visual Basic Editor. Docking a window is useful when you want its contents to always remain in view. The drawback is that the window takes up screen space that you might need as you work in the Visual Basic Editor. The alternative is to let the window float free. You can then resize it or minimize it as you would any other window. Project Explorer displays project items in a hierarchy or tree structure. At the top of the tree is the project itself, which is identified by the project icon, followed by the project name and file name in parentheses. VBA project is the default project name given to new projects, though you can rename it to use a more descriptive name. The file name indicates the name of the workbook. For example, this Project Explorer window shows the contents of the Home OT Mileage Log.xlsm file, which is the current workbook. The XLSM file name extension identifies this as an Excel macro-enabled workbook. VBA projects contain objects. An object is an element in the Excel working environment, such as a worksheet, cell, workbook, or Excel itself. This project contains 14 objects, 13 worksheets, and the current workbook, which is identified as this workbook. It is good practice to rename the project and give it a more informative name. To do so, click Tools on the menu bar and then click VBA Project Properties to open the Project Properties dialog box. Change the name in the project name box to something more meaningful, such as mileage_summary. Note that project names cannot include spaces, so you can use an underscore to separate words in a name. You can also add a description in this dialog box to explain the purpose of the project. Both the name and the description are properties of the project. A property is an attribute of an object that defines one of its characteristics, such as its name, size, color, or location on the screen. To view all the properties for the Mileage Summary project, you select the project name in the Project Explorer window. Note that this project now appears first in the window because the projects are listed alphabetically. Next, click View on the menu bar, and then click Properties window to open the Properties window. The name of each property appears in the left column, and the value appears in the right column. For example, this window displays the name property for the project. The property value is mileage_summary. You can change other names, such as worksheet names, by editing their name properties. For example, to change the name of the mileage summary worksheet, click the Worksheet object in the Project Explorer window to display a list of properties associated with that worksheet. Note that when the Properties window lists a lot of properties, you can click the Alphabetic tab to display them in alphabetic order, or click the Categorized tab to display them organized into categories. To rename the worksheet, click the Name property, and then press the Tab key to select the property value Mileage Summary. Enter the new property value, such as Summary, and then press the Enter key to rename the worksheet. The meaning of some properties, such as name, is clear, but others might need more explanation. To learn about a property or any other element in the Visual Basic Editor, you can enter the name of the element in the Type a Question for Help box. In Project Explorer, the Modules folder appears at the bottom of the object list for a project. A module is a collection of VBA macros. A project can have several modules, with each one containing a set of common tasks. For example, one module might include macros that insert data, and another might include macros that remove data. The Mileage Summary project contains one module. When the Mileage Summary macro was recorded, the Visual Basic Editor placed the macro in a new module with the default name Module 1. As with projects, it's a good idea to rename modules so their names reflect their contents. To do so, you select the module and then use the Properties window to change the name property to rename the module. For example, this module was renamed to Sheet_Macros because the macro in this module is used to display the summary worksheet. Later, other macros will be added to display other worksheets. The third window that usually appears in the Visual Basic Editor is the Code window, which you open by clicking View on the menu bar and then clicking Code. The Code window displays the VBA code associated with the selected item in Project Explorer. For example, this code window displays the contents of the Sheet Macros module, which contains the Mileage Summary macro. You could now use the Code window to edit the VBA code in the macro. When you work with the Visual Basic Editor, keep in mind that the Project Explorer window displays the items in a project in a hierarchy. The Properties window displays the properties of the selected object, such as its name. The Code window displays the VBA code for the selected object. To edit a macro, for example, you add or change the VBA code for the macro.